Hello, friends. Bienvenidos. My name is Jen, aka Jen Colo on social media, your local witchy friend and intuitive guide through the occult. As always, my lovely husband and co-host is David, aka Premier Pulls on social media.
Hi, everyone. On today's episode, Jen explains altars.
Welcome to the show. Grab a chair, make yourself at home. Jen's got stories to share. You'll never feel alone.
It has been such a great week. Thank you to all of the beautiful souls that I met in San Francisco last Saturday.
I know, our first event in San Francisco, huh?
So much fun.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Zia set up the reading room, so nicely and so beautifully. And we had mainly walk-ins. We had one person that booked ahead of time, but everyone else just saw the street sign, just saw the online ad. And we had such a great time. And it was so nice to see so many people from different walks of life. I even did a reading in Spanish. That was new.
Was that your first Spanish reading?
That was my first Spanish reading.
That's incredible. I was so happy. We're definitely taking the next steps, and it's just really cool, especially to be in San Francisco, right? San Francisco is such an eclectic place to be, and we still have the story of how we got there. We're going to save it for our serendipity episode, but things just fell into place. I think sometimes we have situations or opportunities that we don't expect, and what's that saying with luck? Luck is the intersection of opportunity and preparedness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's what happened to us. So I don't know. I was super excited. It was a really busy weekend because we had a lot going on, and I know you had a really, really long day. So thank you for trucking through. I stayed back with our little puppy because at the end of the day, it is a business. So we couldn't both go. It'd be more expenditures, more food and stuff. It was a business trip. Our first kind of business trip, huh, for our LLC.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, I will be returning on August 31st for Labor Day weekend. So
yay. Yeah. And the Bay, I mean, San Francisco is such a fun place to be. So if you're in the area, that's a good spot to check out. And did you tell anybody, or did you meet people and talk about our podcast at all?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah?
I told everyone. Yeah.
Awesome. So if you are listening for the first time, welcome. And if you're a repeating listener, thank you so much for continuing to support us.
Yes. And we will also have a pop-up this Thursday, the 18th, from 6 to 9 at our studio at Luna 209. I will have special event pricing. So this is a discount from my normal rate. So feel free to make an appointment or just walk in and hope you get lucky and get a spot.
Yeah. It was supposed to happen last week, but the weather has been so bad. We're getting to a point where if it's in the high 90s or low hundreds, that's manageable. But it got canceled. I think the city canceled it because it hit 110 or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really bad. So, it was supposed to happen last week, but it worked out perfectly because I was busy last week. So yeah, I'll be there too as well, supporting. And if you want to meet me or come say hi.
Yes, absolutely. And we will also be at Luna this Saturday, just for normal walk-ins or just to come say hi and see the studio from 12 to 6 p.m.
Yeah. Awesome.
And of course, I'm always available virtually if you're not in the area or if those times don't work for you.
Cool. All right. We're going to get into our topic today for altars. We didn't have too many discussion posts for the portals episode, right?
No, but we did get a beautiful story from your mom about her portal experience.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Yes. So David's mom's name is Santa. So you'll hear me refer to her as Santa. But Santa is so healthy, just like I want to be like her someday. She hikes long distances for fun, and she's been doing this for at least 20-30 years. That's what she told me.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah. So this was around 2007, 2008. You were graduating from high school, going to college, but then there was also the worldwide recession, and her workplace said, there might be layoffs, but we're going to try to keep you. And just things were sort of, ending, cycles were ending. It was bittersweet.
I wonder if it was during a retrograde or a return or something like that.
That would be interesting to see. And astrology can also look at events in the past. So if we know what day it was, I could definitely look at that. But anyway, so she went hiking like she usually does. And again, she's hiked this trail for years. But
did she say which one it was by any chance?
yes, it was by
high school?
By high school.
Yeah.
What is it, Bishop's Peak?
No. So there's really, well, now I think there's 2 high schools in where I'm from, San Luis Obispo. But there's a place called the Adult School, which is like, it used to be the old middle school. Anyways, I digress. But like, there is a really cool hiking trail like towards the back, and at the peak, it takes you. There's like a big antenna, but it has a really nice view over the city.
Yeah, so she was doing her normal route there, and the fog was thick. Like, you could not see in front of you, but she just had faith, and she was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep going to the top.
Plus, she's done it a million times, so
Exactly.
I'm sure she kind of knew where to go.
Yeah, so she was just going through this thick fog with just nothing but faith, and then she made it all the way to the top. And from the peak, it was nice and clear, but then it looked like she was above the clouds, just like a fog of blanket under. So it cut off her view of seeing the city.
So underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she broke through the clouds, basically.
Yeah. It was just like an ocean of white. And then she saw like this bright light, and it gave her a lot of joy. She was like, oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. And then she moved, and she noticed that that bright light moved. And then she intentionally started moving, here, there, and she realized that that bright light was her. And so she started yelling, it's me, soy yo. And it just brought her like this wave of euphoria
like
and
a
happiness.
cathartic experience.
Yes. And she was jumping up and down, just yelling, it's me. And then she doesn't really remember the hike down because she was just riding that like high of emotions, but she just felt so happy and so at peace of like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then shortly after is where, she met her first client, and she got into her new line of work, which is caretaking. And after that, she's been able to, do well for herself and grow like a successful business, even teach other people how to go into caretaking. But shortly after that, her life really stabilized in a different direction than what she used to do, which was sell cars. So I thought that was really beautiful that was a portal that your mom experienced, and she saw real benefits, like the energy transition from one side to the other, and it was tangible.
So on a spiritual level, how would you say that defines a portal? Because I think last time we talked about it, basically like a spiritual portal or a physical portal is a place where you can transform from point A to point B, and that can be physically or spiritually. So what would be your interpretation of that?
Maybe, the top of that mountain was close to like an area where the veil was thinning, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what the astrology was like that
Pretty
day.
hard break though, huh?
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool. It's the closest I've heard to like a transportation through something.
Mm-hmm. Even like the journey itself is spiritual. Like there is a spiritual component to like wearing out your body and exercising. That's why like exercise is so good for us.
Sometimes like that runner's high they talk about.
Yeah. So it could have been just like all those things. I think
it would have been more than that though, because she's been avidly doing it, and that's one of her easier hikes. I don't know if she was like exhausted. It really does sound like it was a pretty cathartic experience she went through.
But just moving your body is like spiritual in itself, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if you're not like exhausted, but just like moving.
Yeah, the physical act of doing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all those wonderful things helped her create her own portal.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's a great story. She had told me about it briefly, and it was so long ago. Like she said, I was probably still in high school, but I do briefly remember, but she didn't share it too much. Funny enough, I think we're connecting more on her like spiritual journey because of the podcast. I can be very dismissive. I'll admit that, it's not something, even with my grandma, we've mentioned her multiple times. And now because of the podcast, it's like, now I'm open to hearing the stories, mostly for content. But yeah, I guess they've all been there. And there's irony in that, right? Because did she even mention that to you about like how I've always not really engaged, or what was the thing she said? And now
she was like, his mom is a mystic, he's a skeptic, and he married another mystic. Like, he just can't get away from the mystics.
Yeah. So we had to make a podcast so I could talk about it. Awesome. Well, great story. If you didn't do a post, did you?
No, this week was just wild.
Yeah, we'll combine them. So if you still have a portal story, which I'm sure some of our listeners do have, or have any questions, we'll combine the community post. But going into our topic for today, let's talk altars.
Yeah, so what is an altar? An altar is a dedicated space for spiritual development where you could pray or you could do actual physical works, and that can include having like offerings, symbolic art, relics. When we think of altars, at least me personally, I think of like the Christian pulpits. Some Christian sects are flashier than others, like Greek Orthodox is like all blinged out, all gold. Yes, Catholics are a step below that. Some like, Baptists and stuff is like a little more simple, but yeah, that's what I think of like with the traditional altar, how I grew up. But now, of course, I think of the witchy altars. Also, a lot of like our, Asian neighbors, especially like business owners, have their altars in the front.
And their businesses, right?
Yeah. So there are just so many beautiful altars around the world. It's so great. But it's basically just a dedicated space for something spiritual, whether it's to pray or actually do stuff.
I was excited for this episode because I know we do build on a lot of like previous episodes, but I do feel this is an amalgamation of a lot of things we talked about, starting as early back as like the portal episode. Because if you follow the definition that we spoke about last week, I mean, if you believe in your spirituality, you believe in energy and portals, like your altar can be a honing point for that portal we spoke about, right?
Absolutely.
And we spoke about the Day of the Dead episode, and we talked a lot about altars, and then like the intentionality we've talked about. So like I said, a really cool amalgamation of a lot of topics we've talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the history of altars? I mean, as long as spirituality has existed, altars have existed. According to the Britannica, altars probably originated first as like a tree, a body of water, a rock that came to be regarded as like a holy site or a site that was inhabited by spirits or gods, where someone could go and receive that intervention and that blessing. And then as we began to develop as humans, then we started using like specific stones that were carved a certain way or decorated a certain way, or even like get heaps of stones together or a mound of earth, especially beginning to integrate the practice of sacrifice, things like that, burning things. You had to have more dedicated, elaborate workspaces and altars. Eventually, we transitioned to stone, brick, more ornate things. The Greeks had some of the most famous and beautiful temples. If you think back to like, Greek history with, sometimes it would just be in front of their homes or even within their homes, some public altars, to even like whole big temples. Like, yeah.
What is the difference between an altar and a shrine?
I think they're the same thing.
Would you think it's the same thing?
It's the same thing, different name.
The one, I guess, altar, it's technically a shrine, but one I've always found super fascinating. And obviously I didn't really know about it too much until I actually researched it. So in Muslim culture, they have what's called the Mecca, right? The pilgrimage. But do you know that it's like an actual physical place where they go to, it's like this cube called the Kaaba that they visit? Are you familiar with the Kaaba? Yeah, I always thought that's super interesting because it's like a physical manifestation of their religion. I'm sure different religions have like different things. Like, for example, I know when I used to go to mass, like the Bible that they used was very like sacred, and it was kept in an altar and like and cloths. But there's like a bunch of Bibles, right, all over the world. But or like with the Quran, different
Yeah.
I think the Judeo practice is to have like the scrolls, but they're all different scrolls. There's not like a set of holy scrolls. I guess with is it the Mormons with the tablets, the golden tablets? I don't know if those are. I don't know the religions. I don't know if it's like they still there's like a physical manifestation of them.
Yeah, I have no
or
idea.
It's just like a saying, or I'm sorry, a part of their religions, but we don't know if it exists or not. But with the Kaaba, it's an actual like physical manifestation. It's the shrine that Muslim people do their Mecca to. Like, and I think the government sponsors it. So if you're like out of the country or whatever, they can sponsor that pilgrimage. Or like there's a lot of resources to help Muslims, do their pilgrimage, but it is like a physical shrine.
Yeah, I've seen TikToks about it. It looks so cool. And
it's
then,
like a cube, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this big black and gold cube. It's a trip. I wish I could like be a fly on the wall and see it, but
yeah, no, they're very reserved. That like you can't bring cameras or anything. It's very sacred.
Yeah. But I actually just looked up altar versus shrine because you're right, there are slight differences. And in my original definition, I was conflating both. An altar is where you physically worship, and a shrine is more just like a dedicated space for the gods.
Oh, got it. And the gods need their shrines.
Yeah. So like, for example, in Christianity, an altar would be like where the priest would go up, pull out the Bible, people would go up and receive communion or the wine, things like that, or where they preach out of, versus like a shrine, you don't go in there, you just leave things for whoever you're venerating and honoring. So I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of like my childhood church. So like there was the altar where people would come and go, but with a purpose, right? But then in the corner, there was a corner dedicated to the Virgin Mary, but you wouldn't do anything there.
You would just pay your respects.
Other than pay your respects and like light a candle, leave her flowers, but you wouldn't like do anything there other than look at it or pray to it. Does that make sense?
It does. And it really, it makes sense what you're saying, but now I'm curious, like, is there hybrids? Because we'll go into the personal examples, but kind of how you described it also, it's like, yeah, that's your prayer zone, but you also leave your offerings, leave your things that like, I'm thinking like the witchy altars, like the more modernistic witchy altars. And I can't wait to get into them, but do you think those are a hybrid?
It's like every altar is a shrine, but not every shrine is an altar.
Yes.
And if you do more than just, let me make it like modern times, if it's more than just aesthetic and prayer, then it's an altar. Like, for example, my altar, like I actually make things sometimes there. I might actually like shuffle my cards there. Do spell work.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And then, going back to our Day of the Dead episode, when we talked about altars, were those really more shrines? Because you're not really praying for them. It's just you're doing the offerings for your loved ones who have passed away, but you're setting it up for them with intention, and then you're leaving offerings. So then what is that? Is that a shrine or an altar?
Yeah, I think we're getting into semantics. I think colloquially people just
call it an altar?
Say the same thing back and forth. My biggest thing is sometimes I do readings for people and I use a self-care oracle, and sometimes it'll come out like make an altar or revisit your altar. And I'll tell people like, do you have an altar? And they're like, I don't have space. But the thing is, you don't need a lot of space to have an altar or a shrine. And we can talk about this now, but like some people have portable altars out of like an Altoid tin, like the Altoid mints, and they have little cute things in there, and they open it when they want to like pray, reflect, do work. You really don't need that much space. Some people have nature altars because, maybe the people that they live with wouldn't be cool with their altar, or for whatever reason, maybe they don't have space, but like a dedicated tree outside
Yeah.
is an altar. I kind of have an outdoor altar, which is our front tree. Like if I need to do anything regarding like tossing out offerings, like the last outdoor ritual I did, I tossed blueberries, strawberries, and pomegranate seeds as an offering to like the Hades energy, if you will. So I tossed it at our tree in the front.
And then we live really close to a fairy garden, which scared the shit out of me the first time I went because I had no idea what it was. I think that's kind of a shrine, right?
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. I think I see a couple more notes regarding shrines and altars.
Yeah. And then, sometimes it's like a mixture of things. Like sometimes people will integrate it into something they're doing, like maybe the corner of your dining room table, like that chair is specifically reserved for, whoever, whatever, or people like if they're doing glamour magic, like a corner of their vanity could be a shrine or an altar. There's no right or wrong way to do an altar as long as it serves your purpose for your spirituality.
Yeah. Cool. I have to give my 2 cents.
Of course.
I'm very curious where the human nature, and this one I don't know. I feel like usually I have a good grasp of like I just go back to like evolutionary need, but I feel like as humans we have a big nesting syndrome, whether that be collecting things or hoarding things. For example, for me it's like Pokemon cards, right? I like collecting cards. So I think with an altar or a shrine, it's kind of similar, right? It's a form of nesting, maybe like a spiritual nesting, but evolutionarily, I don't know why we would do that, because I would think that as like, because you always go back, right, to our primitive caveman brain. If we had an altar or a collection of things, or we gathered, we were always on the move being chased by bigger predators. So like, I don't see the evolutionary advantage of having so much emotional well, back then, I don't know if we had spiritual understanding, but I don't see like the evolutionary advantage of having emotional connections to things that aren't like right off meant for survival, right? So like, why do we collect? I guess nesting I could kind of understand because, motherly figures sometimes will like nest if they're pregnant or, their body's telling them like it's time to make a baby, right? So you nest to have the materials for the next generation. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because even though obviously you're more of the spiritual, you understand like evolutionary need.
Yeah. Security, safety, mental health.
But back then?
Yeah, mental health was a thing. Maybe it was more simplistic, but like, this makes me feel good. I feel less stressed out about a bear. I could focus my energies on worrying about something other than a bear. Like
just a distraction. Yeah. I've always found that interesting, especially like we as humans, why we collect things, like people who collect rocks or sticks or, Pokemon cards. There's an innate need to collect. That's why I think the minimalist movement was so big, because it goes so much against our like nature to let go of shit, basically.
But I would say that minimalists do collect. They're just more specific in their
mindful.
Collecting.
Yeah. But we collect, right? We don't just, leave things. Yeah. Well, okay. That's kind of my only like scientific take on this one. I thought it'd be a good thing to discuss. But yeah, if anybody has any theories, I'd be more than happy to hear them. I like the idea of altars. I think it's cool. I have like my prayer beads for grounding. I don't use them for like spiritual work, but I do use them for grounding. So that's kind of like my thing. And then we have our little shelf with all our deities in them. I think that's yours and mine, like communal altar. But that's a good segue into our examples with altars. So tell people about your altars.
Yeah. So
your altar. No, you have a couple. So
yeah. So I was gonna say I'm laughing because like throughout the years, people have given us statues of different deities, and my mom gave me a statue of the Virgin Mary, kind of hoping to like bring me back, right? And I was like, oh, cool. I'm gonna put her here in between Confucius, Buddha, and Gaia.
Well, she was more sneaky than that. She actually didn't give it to you. She brought it when she was visiting, and she left it. And then you were like, hey, you forgot it. And then she's like, oh, just keep it. But it was very like, it was very intentional, which is nice. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's the intention that counts.
Yeah, so I'm just like, you're gonna be chilling next to the other ones. But yeah, how did you feel when I first set up my altar? Because I didn't tell you I was gonna do it. I just kind of did it. I saw a space in our bathroom and I was like, perfect.
I mean, again, I think I've just been it's like when children learn how to parallel play. It's like you have your space, I have mine. And I had taken up all of the office because when we first moved in, I was the only one working from home. So I really made the office all mine. So I didn't have any qualms with you being like, hey, let me have a little space. My biggest worry is always just the candles, because you do have a bunch of candles lit at once, but you're pretty safe with them. So I'm not too worried about that. And the aesthetic is clean. I think sometimes it does get a little rowdy, but I do notice that, not to put you on the spot, but I do notice with like a lot of other things in the house, like next to your bed or your closet, it looks like a rat's nest. But when it comes to your altar, I think you're very intentional and you don't let it get messy, because I think you have respect for it. Not that you don't have respect for the personal space, but it's very different. Have you ever noticed that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
actually.
take a look. Yeah, a little insight into our life. Jen is a little messy.
I spend all of my energy like at work and then at work here.
What do I do? I do that too.
I know, but you have more. I don't know if you'll know what spoons means. It's like energy.
No,
like
that?
You're not neurospicy. I'm neurospicy.
You're not
so
even neurospicy.
I absolutely am neurospicy, but you just have more CPU power in the noggin than I do, you know? Like, yeah, I can't get that upgrade. My stuff fills up faster and then there's just no more space to function sometimes.
Yeah. I've learned to live with it, but it definitely gives me, not so much anymore, but it used to give me so much anxiety, because I was like, how do you kind of, and it's not filthy. I don't want people to think you're living in a pigsty.
Yeah, I was gonna say, please, it's organized chaos or just straight up chaos.
It's chaos,
but it's not like trash. Like
no.
I don't have trash.
No. I think it's funny because I think you're like cleaner than me. Like you really take care of like your hygiene. And again, we're putting ourselves on the spot. I do too. I smoke. Okay. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I should take a shower. So I think you're like a cleaner person than me, but I think you're also a messier person than me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like I don't have, like all my dirty clothes immediately go into the dirty hamper, but clean clothes will be everywhere. It's like that.
And I'm very meticulous about like even my closet, right? I need to make sure all the hangers are facing the right direction. They all need to be the same type of hanger. Everything needs to have its spot. But yeah, anyways, the reason I say all that is because I noticed that about you, but your altar is always like pretty pristine. Yeah, even like for the lighter, like you leave it in a place that looks not just thrown there. It has a lot of intentionality. And you're looking at me, you're laughing. But I've noticed it. So I'm kind of curious what your insight is on that.
I didn't even realize that I do that.
Do you think subconsciously you think it's like a sacred space, so you have to like maintain its sacredness?
Yeah, because I remember, or not I remember, but sometimes I'll put things down because I'm rushing, and immediately I'm like, oh shit, my bad. Let me take this off of here. So immediately, like, yeah, this is a space where you don't just throw whatever onto it.
Yeah, and I mean I respect it a lot. I've never put anything on there that doesn't belong, like for you. And then the only kind of qualm I had, which we've talked about it very briefly, but you explained it, and I thought that was really cool. You did put some fresh fruit on there, and I was very worried it was gonna like rot, but it didn't really. It was just a pomegranate. But tell us again, like about the if your offer is accepted, or your
yeah, supposedly the like spiritual reasoning is that if your offering is accepted, it'll petrify and it won't mold for a long time. So
That pomegranate was in there for a few months and it did not go bad.
Yeah. Eventually I saw a tiny part start to go bad and I was like, okay, this is like done.
Yeah, but it was a long time.
It was like 6 months. Yeah.
All right. So tell us about your altar, what you have on it, what you use it for, and kind of tips or tricks for building one.
Yeah, my first tip is for the non-spiritual partners. You don't want to post pictures of your household altar, because when people know what's on your altar, they know what you're doing and they could try to counteract what you're trying to manifest.
Did you say not for my non-spiritual partners? I don't get it.
So for the non-spiritual partners listening out there, for the non-mystical, spiritual, woo-woo people,
Yes,
people
like me.
you. Yes.
So you don't want to what? Say it
Do
again.
not take pictures of your partner's altar.
Oh, got it. Okay. So, okay. In simple
Because-
terms, like, if it was me, don't post a picture of your altar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then people can see what you're trying to do with your altar. And if they wanted to mess with you, they could try to basically send a negative or counteracting spell. So like if someone sees that you're trying to manifest money on your altar, they want it to be a jerk, they could be like, well, I'm gonna send them, bad vibes, or like a
Bunch of fucking haters.
yeah,
out there.
basically if there are haters out there, they could try to do something to where your like petitions are not gonna work.
Ah, okay.
But you've posted like a few pictures. I've posted a few pictures. I don't really care, but I am intentional about, I write my petitions on the back of the candle. So even if like someone were to see it or take a picture, they wouldn't be able to see what it really is because it's on the back of a candle. And that's when I write like a lot of things. If it's something simple like a sigil, which is basically a fancy symbol for something specific, or a short word, I'll write it at the bottom of the candle.
You've talked about sigils before. I'm really curious about those, so we definitely need to do an episode on sigils.
I was going to say next month I want to do an episode on sigils.
Yeah. I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because before you said that, I was going to highlight some. We've had the honor and the privilege of being shown some altars. I don't really want to put people on blast now, but some of your friends have been very graceful to invite us into their home and say like, hey, this is my altar. And it looks so cool.
Yeah.
The last person who showed us their altar, I'm just going to say, it looked cooler than yours.
It does. No, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It does.
Yeah. I think you're very simple in your altar, but I know its effectiveness because it's really important. And then actually I did something for you too. It just kind of became a little bit of a fire hazard, but this year you did a vision board and you had no idea where to put it. And I showed you, I was like, hey, babe, there's a really, again, her altar's in the bathroom, but there's like a cool towel rack that really fits your vision board. So I put it on top of the towel rack, remember?
Yeah. But I'm spiritual and I light candles, but I'm also not dumb with fire safety.
No.
When I light my candles, I take the vision board off and away.
Correct. Yeah. But I added that to your altar. So I thought that was cool. That was my contribution.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. But yeah, on my altar, I'm not going to say exactly like what, but there are different types of candles, crystals. Now my vision board, thanks to David, my tarot cards, some statues, and some different tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And I really like it. It makes me happy to see it. I used to have a lot more stuff, but then I felt like it got a little too cluttered. So then I really simplified it. But yeah, I am looking for a few things that I want to add.
This is gonna make it sound so bougie, and I almost don't want to share it. But what if you have a housekeeper and they see your altar?
Well, we do have a housekeeper.
Yeah.
And I don't want to freak her out, so I don't remove. I do remove my altar.
You did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When she came to clean, huge shout out. She's a sweetheart. So if you have like people who are coming to your house to do work or something like that.
I mean, it depends on you and your hard limit, because people could be like, it's my fucking house, But I actually do want her to clean it, so I don't mind. And then
just the base of it.
Yeah. And then B, I don't want something to break on accident because she's trying to dust, because like a good housekeeper, if you have a bunch of knickknacks, they will move it and put it back into place.
Yeah.
So even feelings aside, like I just don't want to make it more work for her. And C, I really appreciate her. And I don't want to lose her and freak her out. But I will say, if you look closely at our house, you could kind of tell the vibe. So
yeah, kind of. I think my signature is a little more on the house than yours. You have your little corners, your little rat corners.
I do have corners. Yep, I'm on the corner. Yep.
Wow. Okay, and so I love your idea of the portable Altoid tins. That's really, really cool. I actually think that's dope. I have a friend who he did 2 kits. It was more for like the aesthetic because we're really nerdy and we make like. Well, I don't, but he told me one time he made a vampire kit. So it had like a little suitcase thing, and it had like holy water and like stakes and crosses and some silver. So it was really cool. And then I think one time he said he made a mini one in an Alto tin, and that reminded me of that. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so lastly, just to wrap up the altars, what would you recommend? You already kind of did, but like, what are some pragmatic things? Like, what are some beginning altar things that people can do if they're interested?
This is going to sound vague because it really just depends what you're into.
Correct.
But you need a focal point.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not vague. That's good.
Yeah. Like in Catholicism, they have I don't remember what it's called, but it's like this big spiky circle thing that you stare at. And in the middle, it's like a big Eucharist. Starts with an M, I think, but you have a focal point there. In my altar, my focal point are like the statues that I have. Mm-hmm. And I also have, I forgot, I also have some plants on my altar that need tending because it's really hot. But yeah, you need a focal point. And then I would say you need something that reminds you of what you're trying to achieve. So a focal point to, meditate, speak to, pray to, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then you need a reminder of what is my goal with my spirituality. I would say those are the 2 biggest elements. And a third one, maybe something that represents you, like your favorite rock or your favorite plant or whatever. I think those are 3 really good steps. But again, an altar doesn't have to be this big ornate thing. If you have the space and the privilege, more power.
Liberace altar.
Exactly, more power to you. But if you don't, just a little space for yourself, even a shelf, a drawer, an Altoid tin, a specific tree outside, like anything could be your altar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, 2 more follow-up questions. 1, do you think it's appropriate to have within your altar if like somebody close to you has passed away? Like, is that a good place to honor them?
Yeah, if you want to, you could. If you want to keep like your altar versus like your shrine separate. Uh-huh. Yeah, but a lot of people have ancestor altars. A lot of people work with ancestors. Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely something common. People leave offerings for their ancestors. Like a common one is shots of alcohol, which is really cool, or like cigarettes and stuff. But yeah, absolutely a perfect place to do that.
Speaking of cigarettes, every time you see a Santa Muerte, now it's a shrine, right?
Yeah.
You don't practice with her, but you definitely pay her respects, right?
Yeah, immediately when I see a statue, I'm like, oh shit, let me empty my wallet.
Yeah, I think last time we tried to give her cigarettes, but we didn't have any, so
I was like, and I felt really bad. I was like, I'll get you next time.
Yeah, I got you. We hit them with the IOU.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, don't kill me.
I want to do this, but I want you to build me like my altar. What would you think my altar specifically would have on it?
Absolutely.
Let's start with my focal point. What would my focal point be?
Either a Psyduck or a statue of Poseidon or a trident.
Okay.
Definitely water-based, and definitely like something water, like a water vessel, whether that's like a fountain, a fancy cup with water.
Like a chalice?
Yeah, people have chalices, yeah.
A pimp cup?
yeah, whatever works. And then a bonsai tree, for sure. And
my bonsai tree, I thought I revived him, but I don't know. I don't want to give up on him. Maybe I haven't watered him. So I have a little bonsai tree that I got from work, and I named him Keanu Leaves. And he was thriving and then I kind of killed them. But
We have a green witch that we know. You should reach out to her.
Yeah.
Tamrose Roots on Instagram.
yeah, maybe I will.
Tamrose Roots on Instagram, my bad. Yes,
And,
Tamrose.
maybe she can revive my tree.
Yeah.
Okay, what else would you put on my altar?
And some obsidian. You like obsidian.
I like obsidian. I like jade, and I like turquoise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those types of stones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So stones. All right. And then what type of candles do you think if I had an altar I would rock?
I feel like you like vanilla. So
So scented.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would either vanilla or like a blue candle.
Okay. And what is blue for again?
For you, it's just water.
Just vibes.
Just vibes
water
and water.
Another example of like altars that I'm familiar with. There was a really cool cartoon in the 90s called Hey Arnold. Did you ever see that
Yeah.
show?
Yeah.
So is this the second time we've quoted Hey Arnold on here? I think it is.
I don't know.
No, maybe. But the main girl, what was her name? Helga? Was it Helga?
Yeah.
She liked Arnold and like, but was really mean to her. Like, was a huge bully, but it's because she really liked him. And she had this like shrine of him in the closet, and she like pieced together like basically him. Like she kind of made like a voodoo doll, and then she would like cut a piece of his hair or like do things like that to add to her shrine.
I don't know about those types of shrines.
Oh, that's another one, right?
Yeah.
People who will like take a piece of hair or like a tissue paper. Tell us a little bit more about that. I think we skipped that.
That's more like stalkery vibes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that, but yeah.
There's people who do their shrines, right? Like that.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, it's not your vibe, but we're educating people. So what's like out there?
Yeah, just people that want to really honor someone who is alive to the point where it's like stalker vibes. I remember that during the Eras tour, someone was selling their contact lenses for their used contact lenses for $10,000, saying these contact lenses saw Taylor Swift.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like people that are wild will buy that shit and put it on their shrine. Like,
That's
weird stuff like that. Not my vibe. Absolutely not. But because I feel like that's not productive in any way.
Mm-hmm.
That's just you obsessing and simping over someone else. But anyway, what do you think is missing from my altar?
Well, I haven't seen it, and I don't want to put on blast because you said you have to be protective of your altar, but
I mean,
I think with you, it's a lot of like, and we've talked about it. It's a lot of like, I don't want to say wants, but manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of reflection, I would say.
Yeah.
A lot of your candles are like, I need my candles for this, or this. These are my rocks for this. My tarot goes here because it needs to recharge. I'm a big fan of balance. So it's great to ask and want for things and manifest for things, but I think something in there, like something reflective, right? Like accomplishments or things that you've already done or something that you can look at that will bring you inner peace of like, I did this. This reminds me of a time in my life where I had peace or joy or accomplishment or did something like that. You don't really have anything like that. It's all like working towards something and no pause to reflect of things you've already accomplished.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's very true, actually. I'm a according to human design, I'm a manifesting generator, which means that like I just like to manifest, which is very true because when I first learned about manifesting, I was like, why don't people just manifest 24/7?
Yeah.
And that's basically a reflection on my altar because it's like I have one candle for money, one candle for health, one candle for this and that, and the third. And if I had the capacity to burn like 10,000 candles at once and work out like 10,000 things, I would. But I know it doesn't work that way. There's only so much energy you have.
What would you put as a reflection item?
If I had maybe access to some of my art when I was younger, I'd probably put that.
Yeah.
I should make some art, but there's just no time.
Something to think about, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was super fun. We've had some more intense episodes in the recent week, so this was a fun one. Episode 41, babe.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
41 episodes of us blabbering and people listening.
It's just gonna get even more intense next week.
Yeah, Leo season.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited. So if you're a Leo like us, that's the time to listen. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
visit my website, jencall.com, or the socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, at jencallo.
Look at us. Website, socials. We're legit.
Legit to quit.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
Remember, the magic within you makes the world a more beautiful place. Blessed be, and signing off.